Fiancé took a break to tour Europe with her college friends, so I canceled the wedding. All right, here goes nothing. So me and Sarah had been together for about 5 years, engaged for almost 3. Things were going all right, or at least I thought they were. We had a wedding date set, everything was booked, and I was under the impression we were on the same page. Guess I was wrong about that. See, about 6 weeks ago, she tells me she's going on this trip to Europe with her old college friends. It was like a trip of a lifetime kind of deal, or whatever she called it. I was fine with it. I mean, it wasn't like I was going to stop her from going on a trip with her friends, right? In fact, I even drove her to the airport, helped her with her bags, gave her a kiss goodbye, and wished her a fun time. That's when she hit me with it, the whole, we need to take a break thing. Now, it wasn't like she said, let's sit down and talk about things. Nope. She just drops it on me as we're walking to the security line like it's no big deal. I remember thinking, what the hell do you mean, a break? But before I could even respond or ask questions, she's off in the line, waving goodbye, and that was it. I didn't even process it fully at first. I got back in the car and drove home, thinking it was maybe some weird comment she made because she was nervous about the trip. But then I started calling her, just to check in. And guess what? Blocked. Like, straight up blocked on everything. I couldn't call her, text her, nothing. I checked social media to see if maybe she posted something or gave an update on her trip. Blocked there too. That's when it started to sink in that this whole break thing wasn't some casual comment. She meant it. She really just left for Europe and decided to cut me off without even talking about it. I tried to give it a few days. Maybe she'd calm down. Maybe she'd realize she was being ridiculous. But after 5 days of complete silence, I was done. I made up my mind right then and there. The wedding was off. And you know what? I felt good about that decision. Why should I be with someone who thinks they can just walk away whenever they feel like it? I wasn't going to sit around and wait for her to decide when she was ready to be in a relationship again. Hell no. She made her choice, so I made mine. I canceled everything. The venue, the catering, the flowers, whatever we had planned for the wedding, I pulled the plug. And then, I took it one step further and decided she wasn't moving in with me either, which was supposed to happen in March. Nope, she could figure out her living situation when she got back from her little vacation because it wasn't going to be with me. Weeks went by, and I didn't hear a word from her. Not a single message, not a call, nothing. Then, one day out of nowhere, she calls me. I didn't even know it was her at first, because she must have used a different number or something. She says she's getting back on Thursday morning, gives me her flight details like I'm supposed to care, and acts like everything is just fine, like she didn't ghost me for 6 weeks. I paused for a second and then said, "What's that got to do with me?" And man, the silence on the other end of the phone was golden. She didn't know how to respond. I didn't give her a chance to explain either. I blocked her, just like she did to me, and that was the end of it. Or at least I thought it was. Later that day, I figured it was time to let people know what was up, especially since the wedding was off and all. We had a group chat with some of our friends and family, so I just posted a quick message saying, "Hey, just letting everyone know the wedding is canceled, and so is our relationship." I didn't think it would blow up like it did, but man, people had questions. Everyone started asking what happened, so I laid it out for them. I told them how Sarah went off to Europe, decided we needed a break without even asking me, and then blocked me for 6 weeks. They were all pretty shocked. Some people were even mad on my behalf, which honestly felt kind of nice. You never really know how people will react when you drop news like that, but it was good to have some support. Around 2 p.m., Sarah finally decided to chime in. She didn't say much at first. Just asked me to call her so we could talk about everything. I wasn't having it. I told her we could talk right there in the group chat if she wanted to explain herself. She didn't like that, though. Said something like, "This is between us, not for everyone else." Yeah, no. She made this public the second she walked out of my life without a word. She tried messaging me a few more times, but I just kept it short. I wasn't in the mood to listen to her excuses. By 6 p.m., she was begging me to pick her up from the airport so we could talk this out. Like, seriously? As if nothing had happened? I told her straight up, that was your plan, not mine. None of this was my plan. And I meant it. I wasn't going to go running to the airport like some fool after everything she pulled. To be honest, part of me was still waiting for her to drop some kind of explanation that would make it all make sense. I guess I wanted to believe there was a reason. Something that would justify why she treated me like this. But as the hours went by, I realized there wasn't going to be a reason. She wasn't going to come back with some grand apology or tell me there was some misunderstanding. She made her choice, and I had to live with that. So the next few days, I focused on getting my life back on track. I wasn't about to let this ruin me. I started going through our shared accounts, making sure everything was split up. And yeah, I changed the locks on my apartment. Last thing I needed was her showing up unannounced, thinking she could just waltz back into my life. I was done with that. I even started looking at some trips of my own. I figured if she could run off to Europe for 6 weeks, maybe I should take some time for myself too. I deserved it after all the crap she put me through. Anyway, that's where things stand right now. She'll be back in a couple of days, but I'm not going to be there waiting. She can figure out her own way home. As far as I'm concerned, this chapter of my life is over, and I'm moving on to better things. All right, so let me tell you what happened next, because things got wild pretty quick. After I made my peace with the fact that the wedding was off, I figured it was just a matter of time before Sarah tried to reach out again. I was ready for it, but what I didn't expect was how fast she'd try to play the victim card. It all started when I got this message from one of our mutual friends, Emily. Now, Emily's cool. She's always been straight with me. But this time she was a bit hesitant, like she didn't really want to get involved. But she sends me a screenshot from another group chat, one that I wasn't in, obviously. It was Sarah talking to some of her friends, trying to paint this whole thing like I was the one who overreacted. Can you believe that? In the chat, she's telling them how stressed she was about the wedding and how she needed space to clear her head. She even said something like, "I didn't mean for the break to last that long, but I thought he would understand." And then there was this gem. I just needed to figure out if I was ready for marriage, but he canceled everything before I could talk to him. I almost laughed when I read that. Like she blocked me on everything for 6 weeks, then acts like I'm the one who didn't give her a chance to talk? Nah, that's not how this works. I felt my blood boiling just reading the messages. She was playing the whole poor me card, telling everyone that I was being irrational and rushed into canceling the wedding. At this point, I knew I couldn't just let her keep running her mouth, making me look like the bad guy. So I decided to address it head on. I wasn't going to let her rewrite history. I jumped into the main group chat where all our close friends and family were still buzzing from the wedding cancellation news. Everyone was trying to figure out what the hell was going on, and I figured it was time to clear the air. I posted a message that said, "Look, I just want everyone to know the truth here. Sarah decided we were taking a break without talking to me, blocked me for 6 weeks, and now she's acting like this is some kind of miscommunication. I canceled the wedding because I wasn't going to sit around waiting for someone who didn't respect me enough to even have a conversation." Immediately, people started replying, offering their support and saying how messed up the whole situation was. Sarah was silent in the chat for a good hour or so after that, but then she finally came in with some weak excuse about how she didn't think it would go this far and how she never meant to hurt anyone. Again, no accountability, no real apology, just trying to save face. One of my buddies, Jake, jumped in and called her out right there in front of everyone. He was like, "Sarah, you can't just drop a break on someone and disappear for weeks and expect everything to be fine when you come back. That's not how relationships work." Honestly, I was relieved someone else said it because I was getting tired of defending myself at this point. Now here's where things got interesting. Sarah's friend Megan, who I always suspected was kind of shady, decided to back Sarah up. Megan starts saying how Sarah's been through a lot and how wedding pressure can really mess with your head. She was trying to make it sound like Sarah was the victim of stress and anxiety, which, okay, I get that planning a wedding is stressful, but come on, that's not an excuse to block your fiancé and go radio silent for 6 weeks while you're partying in Europe. Megan goes on, saying stuff like, "You should have given Sarah more time to process everything, and maybe you acted too quickly by canceling the wedding." That's when I lost it. I wasn't about to sit there and listen to some third-party person who wasn't even in the relationship try to tell me how to handle it. So I replied, "Megan, with all due respect, you don't know the half of it. This isn't about wedding stress. It's about the fact that Sarah blocked me, cut me off completely, and didn't bother to talk to me once during the whole trip. I tried. I called, texted, and got nothing. How much more time was I supposed to give her? Another 6 weeks? A year? If Sarah didn't want to be with me, she could have said that. But instead, she disappeared and expected me to just sit around waiting. That's not how it works." The chat went quiet after that. I think everyone was starting to realize just how messed up the whole situation was. Even Megan didn't have much to say after that. A couple of days passed, and I thought maybe things would calm down. But nope. I get another call from Sarah's sister, Rachel. Now, Rachel and I had always gotten along pretty well, so I figured maybe she was calling to check in or something. But as soon as I answered, she went straight into, "Why did you cancel the wedding without talking to Sarah first?" I was stunned. I didn't expect Rachel to take Sarah's side, especially after everything. I told her, "Rachel, your sister blocked me. How was I supposed to talk to her when she literally cut me off?" Rachel didn't really have an answer to that, but she kept pushing, saying Sarah was heartbroken and that I should have waited for her to come back and talk things through. At that point, I had enough. I told Rachel straight up, "Look, I get that you want to defend your sister, but what she did was wrong. She didn't give me any say in the whole break thing, and I'm not going to wait around for someone who doesn't respect me. If Sarah wants to explain herself, she knows how to reach me. But I'm not going to be the one to fix this." Rachel tried to say more, but I just told her I had to go and hung up. I wasn't about to keep having the same conversation with every single person Sarah sent my way. That night, I got another message from Sarah. This time, she was apologizing. Well, sort of. She said she was sorry for how things went down, but didn't take any responsibility for the choices she made. It was one of those half apologies where she tried to make it sound like we were both at fault. I didn't reply. There was no point. She'd made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. I wasn't going to go back and forth with her anymore. After that, I made sure to block her everywhere again, just to make sure there wouldn't be any more drama. I wasn't interested in hearing her excuses or letting her drag this out any longer. At the end of the day, I realized something. I dodged a bullet. If this is how Sarah acted when things got tough, I can't even imagine what it would have been like to be married to her. I felt bad for the time we wasted, but I was glad it ended before it got any worse. Now I could move on, and that's exactly what I plan to do. Update 1. All right. So after all the drama with Sarah and her trying to guilt trip me into reconsidering the wedding, which by the way didn't work, I thought things would quiet down for a bit. But nope, not in my life. Turns out, I had way more coming my way than I could have expected. About a week after I blocked Sarah for the last time, I get this random call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer it because at this point, I wasn't in the mood for more drama. But for some reason, I picked up. And guess who it was? Sarah's mom. Yeah, her mom. Like, what the hell? Now, Sarah's mom, Lisa, had always been one of those people who was super sweet to your face, but you could tell she had this whole passive-aggressive vibe just under the surface. She was the type of person who would give you a compliment, but somehow, it felt like an insult. You know what I mean? Anyway, Lisa starts off the conversation all friendly, like nothing had happened. "Hi, sweetheart. How are you doing?" she says, like we hadn't just canceled a wedding and blocked her daughter from my life. I wasn't about to play games, so I kept it short. "I'm fine, Lisa. What's going on?" That's when she starts with the whole guilt trip. She says, "Oh, we were so looking forward to the wedding, and this whole thing has really devastated Sarah. You know she's been crying every day since she got back, right? She's just been a mess." Now, I wasn't about to let her make me feel bad for Sarah, not after everything she pulled, so I told her straight up, "Lisa, I'm sorry Sarah's upset, but she made her choices. I didn't call off the wedding for no reason." And then, Lisa hits me with this. "Well, maybe you overreacted a bit. You know, Sarah was just nervous about the whole thing, and sometimes people make mistakes when they're stressed. Don't you think you should give her a second chance?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I mean, she was acting like Sarah blocking me for 6 weeks and disappearing was just a minor mistake. I wasn't having it. "Lisa," I said, "this wasn't just nerves. She literally blocked me on everything and went off to Europe without saying a word. That's not something you just brush off. If Sarah was having doubts, she should have talked to me, not shut me out." But Lisa wasn't done yet. Oh no. She kept pushing. "I know it seems bad, but think about all the years you've been together. You've had such a good relationship. Don't you want to try and save it? I'm sure once Sarah explains everything, you'll understand." At this point, I was getting pretty annoyed. It was like Lisa wasn't even listening to what I was saying. She was so focused on getting me to take Sarah back that she wasn't considering how I felt. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, and said, "Lisa, with all due respect, Sarah had 6 weeks to reach out to me, and she didn't. I've already made up my mind. The wedding is off, and that's final." I thought that would be the end of it, but Lisa wasn't done yet. She goes, "Well, if you won't talk to Sarah, at least come over for dinner so we can talk as a family. Maybe we can work through this together." I was speechless. She was inviting me to their family dinner, like this was some kind of minor argument that could be solved over a plate of spaghetti. I knew this wasn't going anywhere, so I told her, "Thanks for the offer, but I think it's best if we all just move on." And with that, I hung up. You'd think that would be the end of it, right? Wrong. The next day, I get a message from Sarah's dad. Now let me tell you, her dad, Tom, is one of those old school guys who thinks he's always right. He's never really liked me, but he tolerated me because Sarah and I were together. So when I saw the message from him, I knew it wasn't going to be a friendly chat. He basically laid into me, saying how I was throwing away a good thing, and that I was ruining Sarah's life by not giving her a chance to explain. He even said something like, "Men don't act like this. You should be standing by your fiancé, not running at the first sign of trouble." That really pissed me off. I mean, I was standing by Sarah for years, and this is how I get treated? I didn't reply to Tom's message because I knew it would just turn into a pointless argument, and honestly, I was over it. But that wasn't the worst part. A couple of days later, I get a message from Sarah. She used some other number to reach out, and it was a long message, like multiple paragraphs long. She went on about how she was sorry for everything, how she didn't mean to hurt me, and how she realized she made a mistake. She said she was confused about the wedding and needed time to think but didn't know how to tell me, so she panicked and blocked me. Then she dropped the big one. She said she still wanted to get married. Yeah, you read that right. After all of this, after blocking me, ghosting me for 6 weeks, and trying to blame it all on wedding nerves, she still wanted to marry me. It was like she was living in some fantasy where everything could just go back to normal with a simple apology. I sat there staring at the message for a while, not really knowing what to say. Part of me was still angry. No, actually, most of me was still angry. But there was a small part of me that felt, I don't know, sad, I guess. Like, we'd spent years together and this is how it all ended. It wasn't how I pictured things going, that's for sure. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that this wasn't something I could forgive. It wasn't just about the wedding or the trip to Europe. It was about trust. Sarah had broken that trust, and no amount of apologies or explanations was going to fix it. I couldn't marry someone who thought it was okay to just disappear when things got tough, so I did what I should have done from the start. I blocked the number she used to text me, deleted the message, and moved on. For real this time. After all of that, I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I wasn't tied down by Sarah's guilt trips or her family's pressure anymore. I could finally focus on myself and what I wanted for the future. And honestly, it felt pretty damn good. Update 2. Alright, so you'd think after I blocked Sarah and her family again, things would finally settle down, right? Wrong. Of course not. Because that would be too easy. I swear, it's like they just couldn't let go of the fact that the wedding was off, and they kept coming at me from every angle, like they were trying to wear me down or something. Spoiler, it didn't work. A couple of days after Sarah's last attempt to reach out, I get a text from someone else. This time, it's from one of Sarah's bridesmaids, Katie. Now, Katie and I weren't exactly close. I mean, she was always nice enough when we hung out as a group, but she was more Sarah's friend than mine. So when I saw her name pop up, I was immediately suspicious. The text started off innocent enough. She was asking how I was doing, saying she'd heard about the breakup, blah, blah, blah. But I wasn't stupid. I knew she wasn't just checking in for no reason. So I kept my response short, something like, "Yeah, I'm fine, just dealing with everything one day at a time." And then she hits me with it. "I think you should hear Sarah out." Here we go again. I stared at my phone for a minute, trying to figure out if I should even respond. Part of me wanted to just block Katie too and move on, but I was curious. I wanted to see where this was going. So I asked her why she thought that. Katie goes on this long rant about how Sarah's been really struggling and how she's been crying every day since she got back from Europe. She said Sarah was too scared to reach out to me directly because she thought I wouldn't listen. Apparently, Sarah had been telling her friends that she messed up big time, but didn't know how to fix it. I sighed, feeling that frustration bubble up again. "Katie, I've heard all of this already. I gave Sarah chances to explain herself, and she didn't. She blocked me for 6 weeks and then expected everything to be fine when she got back. That's not something I can just forget." Katie tried again, saying how Sarah just needed space and didn't mean to hurt me. But the more she talked, the more I realized what was really happening. Sarah had sent Katie to do her dirty work, thinking maybe I'd listen to someone else. It was like she didn't even have the guts to face me herself anymore. I was done. I told Katie, "Look, I appreciate you trying to help, but this isn't something that can be fixed with a few apologies. It's over, and that's it." I could tell she wanted to keep pushing, but I didn't give her the chance. I blocked her right after that, and then, just when I thought I was finally in the clear, I get another message. This time, it's from one of Sarah's cousins, Mark. Now, I hadn't heard from Mark in months, and out of nowhere, he's texting me, asking if we can meet up to talk about everything. At this point, I was so fed up with everyone trying to drag me back into Sarah's drama that I almost didn't respond. But curiosity got the better of me. I wanted to know what angle Mark was going to come at me with, so I agreed to meet him for coffee. When I showed up at the cafe, Mark was already there, looking a little nervous. We sat down, and after some awkward small talk, he finally got to the point. "Look, man, I know this whole thing with Sarah has been a mess. I just wanted to check in with you and see if there's any way you two could work things out." I almost laughed. "Mark, it's done. There's nothing to work out. She made her choices and I made mine. He looked uncomfortable, like he knew he was about to say something I wasn't gonna like. Yeah, I get that. But here's the thing. Sarah's been talking about how she thinks she made a mistake. And, well, she's been hinting that maybe you guys could try again if you gave it some time. I put my coffee down, trying to keep my cool. Mark, no offense, but Sarah had her chance. She made a mistake, fine. But she didn't just make a mistake. She ghosted me for weeks. She cut me off like I didn't even exist. That's not something you can just bounce back from. He nodded, but I could tell he wasn't really hearing me. Yeah, but what if she's serious about fixing things? She's been talking about wanting to make it up to you. I shook my head. Mark, I appreciate you coming here and trying to help, but it's not going to happen. If Sarah wants to move on, that's fine. But I'm not interested in picking up where we left off. We sat there in awkward silence for a bit after that, both of us kind of knowing that this conversation wasn't going anywhere. Eventually, Mark shrugged and said, I get it. I just thought I'd give it a shot. I finished my coffee, stood up and said, thanks for trying, man, but it's over. It's time for both of us to move on. He gave me a half-hearted smile and we said our goodbyes. After that, I thought maybe, just maybe, that would be the last of it. I mean, how many people could Sarah possibly send after me, right? Well, apparently I was wrong again. Because the very next day, I get a message from Sarah's aunt, of all people. Now I barely knew this woman. We'd met at a couple of family events, exchanged polite small talk, but that was it. So when I saw her name pop up on my phone, I knew something was seriously wrong with Sarah's side of the family. Her aunt starts off by saying how she heard about the breakup and wanted to see how I was doing. At this point, I was so over it that I just straight up asked her, did Sarah send you? Her response? Well, not exactly, but she's really been struggling and I thought I could help mediate things between you two. I almost threw my phone across the room. Mediation? I texted back. There's nothing to mediate, we're done. I don't know how much clearer I can make it. She didn't give up, though. She said something about how love is worth fighting for and how I shouldn't throw away years of a good relationship over a misunderstanding. That's when I realized that Sarah had probably been feeding her family this whole sob story, making it seem like I was the one who overreacted. I didn't even bother replying this time. I blocked her and decided that was it. No more conversations, no more explanations, no more giving people the chance to drag me back into that toxic mess. I was done. For real this time. After that, things finally quieted down. No more texts, no more calls, no more random family members showing up in my inbox trying to guilt me into taking Sarah back. It felt good, like I could finally breathe again without the weight of her drama hanging over me. And honestly, for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was actually moving forward. No more waiting for apologies that didn't mean anything, no more wondering what could have been, just me, focusing on what's next. And that's exactly what I needed. Update 3. Alright, so here's how everything finally wrapped up. And yeah, things didn't end quietly, of course. You'd think after blocking Sarah, her mom, her bridesmaids, and pretty much her entire family, things would just die down. Well, that's not what happened. Because Sarah, she decided to make one last move. And it was the one that made me realize just how far she'd go to try and win me back. Or at least get her way. So about a month after everything went down, I get this letter in the mail. Yep, a literal letter, like it's the 1800s or something. I almost didn't open it because who even sends letters anymore? But the handwriting looked familiar, and I figured, why not? Maybe it was some final attempt from Sarah, but honestly, I wasn't expecting anything too crazy. Boy, was I wrong. I opened the letter, and it was this long, handwritten message from Sarah, like pages long. She poured her heart out, saying she missed me, she regretted everything, blah, blah, blah. But here's the kicker. Wait, I can't say that. Here's the wild part. She didn't just say she was sorry. She started talking about how she wanted to meet up again and how she still had the key to my apartment. Let me repeat that. She said she still had the key to my apartment. The same key I had completely forgotten she even had. My stomach dropped. I mean, I'd already changed the locks once when this all started, but I hadn't even thought about the fact that Sarah might still think she had access to my place. I immediately got up, checked the locks, again, and started thinking about what to do next. But that's not all. The letter wasn't just some apology. She was basically laying out a plan for how we could start fresh. She said she'd been talking to her mom about how we should go to couples counseling, and she thought if we could just meet up and talk face to face, we could work things out. At this point, I was more annoyed than anything. Like, she seriously thought this was a good idea? After blocking me, ghosting me, sending her entire family after me, and then acting like I was the one who needed to fix things. I couldn't believe it. But it gets better. Toward the end of the letter, she mentioned that she'd already started making arrangements for us to meet with a counselor. Like she had already booked the appointments without even asking me. The audacity, right? She didn't ask if I was interested, didn't check in with me at all. Just assumed I'd go along with it. I was fuming. I couldn't believe she still didn't get it. After everything, she was still trying to control the situation, still trying to get me to bend to her will. It was like she thought if she just planned everything out, I'd eventually give in. So I sat down and wrote her a letter back. I figured if she wanted to play the old-fashioned game of sending letters, I'd go along with it one last time. But this time, I made things clear. I told her in no uncertain terms that we were done. There was no counseling, no second chances, no meeting up to talk. I told her to return the key, even though I'd already changed the locks again, and that she needed to move on because I sure as hell was. I sent the letter back and felt pretty good about finally shutting that door for good. I thought that was going to be the end of it. But nope. A week later, I get another letter from her. This time it was much shorter. She didn't argue or try to convince me to go to counseling. She just said she understood where I was coming from, but she still thought we should talk. And then she said something that really freaked me out. She mentioned that she'd driven by my apartment a couple of times and saw that I wasn't home. She didn't say why she was driving by or what she was doing, but the fact that she was checking up on me like that sent chills down my spine. At that point, I knew I had to do something more drastic. I wasn't about to let this turn into some creepy stalking situation. I called my landlord and asked about getting extra security, maybe even cameras installed. I wasn't playing around anymore. And just when I thought things couldn't get any weirder, I get a call from my mom. Now my mom knew about everything that had happened, and she'd been super supportive throughout all this. But she called me to say that Sarah had visited her, like, showed up at her house unannounced, asking to talk about us. I almost dropped my phone when she told me that. Sarah had gone to my mom's house to try and get her to convince me to take her back. I was pissed. Not only was Sarah crossing boundaries with me, but now she was dragging my family into it, trying to manipulate the situation through them. My mom, bless her heart, didn't fall for it. She told Sarah that I'd already made my decision and that she needed to respect it. Sarah apparently got emotional and started crying, but my mom didn't back down. She told her that it was time to move on. After that call, I realized I needed to take one final step to end this for good. I filed for a restraining order. I didn't want to, but I felt like I had no choice. Sarah was getting too close, and I needed to protect my space and my family. When Sarah got served with the paperwork, she finally backed off. No more letters, no more visits, nothing. It was like she finally got the message. I didn't feel good about having to go that far, but I knew it was the right thing to do. And honestly, after everything that happened, I learned a lot about myself. I learned that it's okay to stand up for your boundaries, even when people don't want to respect them. I learned that you don't owe anyone endless chances, especially when they've broken your trust. And most importantly, I learned that moving on isn't just about walking away. It's about protecting your peace and your future. So yeah, that's it. That's how it all ended. I'm finally free from all the drama, and I'm moving forward with my life. It wasn't easy, but I made it through. And now, I'm just focused on what's next. No more looking back.
Thanks for watching this video. Subscribe for more such videos. Feel free to leave suggestions and comments.